From the southeastern corner of western North Carolina, this is Polk Lore. I'm your host, James Hernishin. Every now and then, someone on Facebook complains when I post something to one of the community group pages that I use to let people know a new episode is up. But the complaints only come when the episode is something to do with politics because, people hate politics. And they'd prefer their social media feeds weren't contaminated by issues and arguments that make them uncomfortable. Fair enough, I suppose. I hate politics too, or at least I hate what politics has become, because so much of what passes for politics these days has become hate-filled and contemptuous propaganda, instead of evidence-based and respectful conversations about how to make the world a better place. But I'm not going to stop including a lot of political content on Polk Lore, not when the great experiment that is American democracy is at stake, which, to be clear, it is. What I'm trying to do is connect the dots between what's going on in Washington and Raleigh with the experiences of real people in Polk County, people who don't have the luxury or the privilege of shutting out politics because politicians are threatening their very existence. This episode's guest fits right into that category. In fact, it was Myles Freeman who inspired this podcast in the first place, when he stood up during a Polk School's board meeting 3 years ago to defend his right to live and learn on his own terms and define himself as a young man. I decided he deserved more than the 3 minutes that the school board allows for public comment, and so was launched Polk Lore. I made his interview the second episode, and you should listen to it if you haven't already. Now Myles is about to graduate from Polk High School, so as part of my attempt to revisit some of the guests and topics I've covered over the past 3 years, I asked him to come back and tell me how he, as a trans man, is doing at what is a critical juncture in anyone's life. 3 days later, the seniors at the high school named him Prom King. I think that qualifies as good timing and a good story. We caught up at my home in Saluda a few days after that. All right, Myles Freeman, welcome back to Polk Lore.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
It's been just over 3 years since we talked last time, and your appearance on the podcast was actually the impetus for the podcast in the first place, if you recall. And I'm pleased where the podcast has gone since then, but I thought kind of as a 3-year anniversary, I'd do at least one episode on let's catch up on some of these people. So we'll get to some of the bigger parts of your life in a minute, but a few days ago, you were named Prom King.
Yes.
I gotta say, I was surprised.
Very much me too. Yeah.
What was that like?
Shocking. I was like, initially I was not expecting it at all. And honestly, I'm somebody who has never really cared about that title. I feel like it's always been like a popularity contest, it's nothing I've really been interested in. I almost didn't even go to prom until my friends were like, we should all go together. Okay, yeah, I'll go. And I was like really shocked is the only word that I can describe it. It felt like so surreal, but it gave me a lot of hope at the fact that that was even possible. Obviously, the administration allowed it to happen. Nobody said anything to me, so good or bad. No one really. It was like, which I'll take, but I didn't have any complaints. There hasn't been any public outrage, so that was very surprising, and I'm really happy about it.
Well, being named Prom King or Queen is definitely a popularity contest, right?
Mhm.
So it must be a bit validating to know that, let's face it, you are kind of outside the mainstream.
Very much.
So not a quarterback, not a cheerleading squad. However, you're at the games playing drums,
Yeah.
right? So does this tell you anything about the community at the high school and Polk County in general?
I think it goes to show that a lot more is noticed. A lot more people are accounted for than what most may think. Because, like, I understand how, the quarterback or the football team or all these things get the most recognition. Like, that happens everywhere. But I think it really does go to show that this community is very tight knit and can be accepting and can be validating to those who aren't in the front and center and aren't in the spotlight.
Was this decision by the student body, is it, when you think about it over the last 3 years, is it kind of a logical outcome, or like you didn't anticipate
No,
that level of support?
not at all. No, I think what happened, which I'm thankful for, is all of my friends and people who support me showed up, and word of mouth spread to vote for me. How that happened, I don't know, but it did. And I think it was people just saw, like, my name was floating around, and that's how it ended with me. Yeah.
I would think too that there's an element of you are, if not positively popular, you are definitely well known.
Yes. Yes. I think my name is definitely, people know who I am with just by my name alone. If that's a good or bad thing, I don't know, but
Well, obviously, it was more of a good thing than a
yes,
bad thing.
exactly.
Right.
Which I'm so thankful for, honestly. Like it really meant a lot to me, and it still does. Like,
All right. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
And enough about the prom king, because I agree. I think it's kind of a little bit on the silly side when you get right down to it. But so, what have you been up to for the last 3 years?
A lot. Um, Definitely been keeping busy, but something that has been taking up most of my time outside of school has been a band that I've been involved with outside of school because I'm in the marching band. I do all that, but been a band called All Blissed Out. It's a 4-person punk band. We've been playing around Asheville on Spotify. Like, it's been really taking off. And I'm really happy about it.
All right. Well, let's just play a little clip from your EP. What's the EP's name?
I Flooded the Turlet.
All right, Blood of the
EP.
Turtle. Yeah, it's one of the tracks, I think,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Well, we'll play another track. It's called Uniform.
I'm not a person who lights up in the stars. I'm not a person who does any drugs at all. I'm not a person who skips class in the hall. You like to treat me when the cops seem to be called. You put this on me, so I look I've got a brain. Get young, I'm dirty, hands off, I'm stuck in straight. Fuck God's lesson, they put me on a chain. Fuck your oppression, no we won't play your games.
Well, that was definitely punk.
Yeah.
What drew you to punk? Because let's face it, it's not really the most popular genre these days.
Oh yeah. No. I think that's why I'm so drawn to it. Is a lot of people don't know until you get involved with the scene, but it's really active, especially in Asheville. And the community is just something that I cannot explain. Of course, the music is so important and has always been important, but really just the people that play the music and listen to the music, go to shows, are so supportive and so welcoming. It's something that I can't describe. Like, you have to go to know. The community is just, it's like a second family. And they have been really supportive in us starting. We're definitely one of the youngest bands. And I think that is what has made us so well received, is because yeah, so many times people have told me, "You're bringing punk back. Like, this sounds just like how it did in the '80s. Like, we are so excited." And it's been awesome, just like the generations of people who have been in this scene coming to our shows, watching us. It's been awesome.
I know you guys played a gig at the Sly Grog in Asheville last year. I think there's a video on YouTube. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes, just because it does look like 1970s or
Mhm.
early 80s has returned.
Yeah. Yes, that's our goal. Like, that was our top inspiration, was that whole period.
Do you have any specific bands that you draw from?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we take a lot of inspiration from like Black Flag, Descendants, DRI, Bad Religion, all of like some of the OG bands, but they go everywhere from like hardcore punk, crossover, punk rock, like all of those we kind of um draw our inspiration from.
And I should just mention, because our listeners may not have clued in, you're on the drums.
Yes, yes, I play drums. Drums are my thing. Can't really do much else, but
All right. What else has held your attention since you basically arrived on the scene as someone who, who got my attention, for the podcast?
school and working on myself has been very important to me since we last spoke. I've had a lot of time to work on myself. Like I said, I've been taking a lot of time in school to be the best that I can be. During my freshman year, when everything was going on, the public uh, outrage, you could say, against me and my peers, that took a heavy toll on me then, but it hasn't really affected me since. And I think since we did the last episode and since I talked at the board meeting and it really blew over and I haven't had anything like that happen again, which I'm really thankful for. But it's allowed me to take a lot more time to myself and focus on things that every other high schooler is focused on. Honestly, it's given me the space to be like a normal kid.
Well, going through high school is a process of self-discovery for any human being, and you just have a slightly more complicated set of issues to deal with, I guess. I mean, slightly. I don't know, but you don't seem to me like you are struggling. You are going to UNC Asheville next
Yes.
year, right?
Yes.
This fall.
Yep, committed. I'm ready to go.
What are you going to be studying?
I'm planning on double majoring in psychology and also arts and marketing, which is a new major that they recently implemented. So I'm really excited for that.
And are you going to be living up there? Or you got?
Yep, we have to live on campus, which is a whole nother thing that is kind of a interesting thing to deal with. Somebody like me dorming with other people is definitely a big step. And it's something that I never really thought about until recently that I actually have to do. So as of right now, I'm planning on just applying for a dorm room and seeing what happens, you know?
That response could have been given by any only child.
Yes, exactly. Hey, I mean, the shoe fits.
Yeah. Here's I think my most challenging question. What is it that you have realized is important that you didn't think was important about the process of discovering who you are, or the other way around?
To me, I think it was learning how to not let other people's words or opinions truly affect me. And I know everybody says that, no matter the case. But like I said, when everything was going on, all of the opinions coming from the parents and just hearing every day the next thing people thought about me, what else people were saying.
Most people will say, yeah, you got to stop caring about what other people think about you. But you're living in a country right now that has a political conversation going on where discrimination against a whole variety of people, including trans individuals, has become a huge part of the political landscape. You can't just turn that off, right?
Exactly.
So do you just not pay attention to the news, or what do you do?
I personally try and stay as informed as I can, but I have to learn how to distance myself so I don't worry about anything and everything. I have also learned how to advocate for myself, and I have done everything in my power to help myself and my peers as much as I can. So for that, I mean, my mom and I have started a parent support group locally for LGBTQ youth and their parents to come. And through that, we've been doing it for a little over a year now, so it'll be 2 years this summer. We have seen so much growth in everybody that has come. They're all adolescents, young adults, and majority are trans, are in the middle of their transition. Their parents, are kind of where my parents were when I first came out. They don't really know what to do, but they want to support their child the best way they can. And just being able to provide a safe space for these kids and their parents has been a huge step. I think just having that local group of support has been really helpful to me and to everyone else who comes. But also, I've looked throughout North Carolina, and I've connected with different organizations and different individuals. So it's kind of like we're creating a tight knit group of support region wide. And, there's going to be so much more, I know, um, coming, upcoming with the recent administration and all that. People are really banding together and learning how to operate as one. So that's definitely been a very important step in helping myself and others.
You think people are innately resistant to the notion of gender being non-binary, and it's almost like that's one little fact that if you can get over that, then it all kind of falls into place.
Exactly.
Okay, well that's my take on it.
Yes.
But even myself, when I have a degree in biology, it took me a while to do the research to understand that not just gender but sex is actually non-binary. Now it's extremely rare
Yeah.
to be not male or female, but
Mhm.
there are a finite number of people out
Mhm.
there who don't fit into the nice categorizations we grew up with. Do you ever find yourself having to explain the science?
Many times, many times. It's definitely a large and difficult step to get over. I feel like for people who are trying to wrap their head around this, and especially people who don't really have a background in biology or any science or anything, it's not a difficult task, but I myself have had to look into it to understand just how to explain myself and my identity to people who don't experience it and people who don't have a very good understanding of it. It's difficult, I guess, to understand, but once you do, like you said, it all starts to make a lot more sense, and it kind of opens your mind to a lot more people and a lot more identities.
Because it's not just a sexual spectrum that we humans have to deal with, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I remember that they kind of reclassified Asperger's as the autism spectrum
Mhm.
disorder, right? And it's easy to try to classify people into simple pigeonholes, but
Mhm.
when you understand that there's a whole spectrum of characteristics and of personalities, and I mean, I guess we just get lazy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you want to be able to categorize people,
Yes.
and it's just best to let them categorize themselves.
Exactly. No, and I see that with a lot of people who I try and explain not just my identity to, but a lot of my trans peers who don't happen to fall in just binary male or female. A lot of people that I know are very understanding of me, but still don't understand one of my friends who doesn't identify as male or female or stuff like that. So it's really still a learning curve for anybody no matter how accepting you are. I think there's still something to be learned. There's always more to learn.
Well, I think that's a really important point, that if you can admit as a trans person that you guys don't have all the answers
No.
because it's really, really complicated, that might make it easier for people to realize, well, I don't have to come to definitive conclusions,
hmm
right?
No, it's true. I think speaking for myself, I don't need somebody to learn all of the inner workings of my mind or how people like me, came to this conclusion or the way we feel. Really, if you just respect me, that's what will make me the happiest, is if I am respected. And
Well, wouldn't it be great if we could get to a world where everyone's default position is respect?
that, yeah, wishful thinking, right? I know. That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, let's wrap up with an even more high level discussion. Are you basically optimistic about this world that my generation is handing off to yours? Because you have every right not to be.
I go between being optimistic, being pessimistic. It's really, I feel like every day there's something new. And I think the scariest part, which I'm sure everybody can relate to this, is just the future is so unknown. I feel like I'm not sure exactly what to prepare for, what to expect, just because I have no idea what's going to happen. I do my best to stay as positive as possible and tell myself everything is going to work out. Like, we will be fine. But that being said, I know that there's a lot of work cut out for my generation. I feel like recently, just things that have gone underway have done almost irreparable damage. That being said, I've heard time and time again, like, it's my generation's job to fix what's going on now. I feel like we can, but I also feel like with some of the circumstances, it's going to be extremely difficult. Even for myself, like the next 4 years, the near future just seems so unpredictable, especially with, I just woke up to the news of like what's happening with Harvard and all the money that's being, I don't know where my education is going to go. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years of me going to college and how that's going to work out. Yeah, I just don't know.
Right, because universities are being threatened with loss of funding if they don't eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion
Exactly.
policies. I would expect that almost everybody could be affected by that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
There's also the threat posed by artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
That must have come into play when you're thinking about a career path, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, I wasn't going into a job that centered around tech or stuff like that. I'm planning on being a therapist. That is my goal right now. Actually, I did want to go into education slightly, but since the, Department of Education and all of that, I have just decided, I'm gonna try and go down this pathway, but it's affected, my dad works for NOAA, not artificial intelligence, not the use of AI, but some of the recent job cuts and federal, all that. My dad works for NOAA, and thankfully he still does have his job, but in a few weeks, we
Things
don't
could
know
change.
exactly. We don't know where that's going to go, and so I wouldn't say it's affected my career path, but it's definitely affected the way I think about planning my future and what am I going to do if I need a backup plan. What am I going to do? What are my other avenues that I can go down? And even with some of the, DEI elimination, I'm kind of worried about if people did find out about my identity, how is that going to affect my chances of getting a career? How is that going to affect my chances of establishing myself as a professional? It's just a lot of what ifs. And I think that's the scariest part about it.
Again, I don't know if it's unique to any one cohort that they have an uncertain future,
Exactly.
but the pace of change does seem to be remarkable. I mean, the advances in AI from one year to the next are extraordinary. Even therapists
Yeah.
are being targeted as, well, AI could do that. I mean, I wouldn't go seek an AI
Yes.
therapist, but depending on what field you go into, you'll
Yeah.
probably end up working in AI will probably be part of your world, whether you like it or not,
Mhm.
right?
It's scary, the thought of that. I don't use AI for really anything. I've played around with it a few times, like ChatGPT and stuff like that, but I am one who prefers the human connection, and I hope for my case in the future, just like speaking about um my future plans, I hope that idea passes down. Yeah, I hope other people think the same and feel the same, and all I can do is really hope. But I do need to figure out. I feel like as a generation, we need to figure out how to cope and how to intertwine this new technology into our world if it's going to be so present.
Okay, well, last question, which I didn't include in my list, but I think it's an obvious question. You grew up in this part of the world and you're going to school in this part of the world. Do you plan to stick around this part of the world?
I do. I think I'm fairly certain that I will. I think it's somewhere, even though it does have its challenges, it's somewhere that is just so special to me and so many other people that I could not imagine my life anywhere else. The community here that I have been a part of has been so meaningful and so tight knit. Like I said, it's just something that I don't think I could give up for the world.
Okay,
And
well, that was my way of getting you to answer the optimism question, whether you liked it or
yeah,
not.
there you go. You've done it. Yep.
All right. Well, look, that wasn't didn't take too long, but I think we covered it all. Unless there's anything else you think needs to be stated about, the evolution from 3 years ago when anti-trans sentiment was showing up at our own school board to now where at the national scene, if you're not a straight white middle class guy, you're not the favored type. Um, do you have any kind of overarching thoughts about that evolution?
I do. I think that it's rapid growth of growing bigotry, you could say, is very scary. It feels very threatening, but ultimately, what has kept me grounded is knowing that people like me have been fighting this battle for decades. People before me have kind of paved the way for us, and we need to learn from them. History repeats itself, as many people say, and I think that the broader population needs to learn that we won't be defined by legislation. We won't be defined by what people think about us. Speaking on trans people, we have always been here and we will continue to be here no matter what policies are put on our bodies, our identities. It's not going to stop us. And I think for anybody who is struggling with this, no matter their identity, there are plenty of people out there that feel the same. And what is the most important is finding your community and finding those support systems so you can just really help each other. I mean, that's what it comes down to, I think, is finding support in one another. It's changed my life. And I know it
Because
can
you
change
did
many.
find that support here.
Exactly. Yes. And it's made such a big difference in who I am and how I, work with other people and how I can help other people. It's just beyond words, I think.
All right. Well, look, have a good summer. Good luck at university.
Thank you.
And I know we'll stay in touch.
For sure. Yes. Thank you so much.
One thing Myles and I decided not to talk about in that interview was the most political of all the issues surrounding trans rights: whether trans girls and women should be allowed to play on women's teams. For one thing, it's not something that Myles or I have any personal experience with. For another, it's a way more technically complex topic than I'm comfortable dealing with without a PhD behind the other microphone. If you're interested, there's a recent episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver that I can't recommend highly enough. It's full of hard data and solid science. I've included a link to the YouTube stream in the show notes. All I'll say here is that what science has revealed about gender and sex, and how complicated the expression of genes on the Y chromosome can be, makes it really hard to dismiss trans rights as just kids trying to be different. I'll leave you with an excerpt of a live recording of All Blissed Out featuring Myles on the drums. As always, send your feedback and guest suggestions to jamesH@polklore.com. And thanks to everyone who's been listening over the past 3 years. I know sometimes it hurts your ears, but sometimes you need a little politics or a little punk to keep you hip to what's happening.